Okay, welcome to the second time I'm recording this. This is our CCC Confer for week 7, and I had some problems with the recording last night, so I'm recording it again, and I should be making this available to you for tonight. So, on the agenda, it says questions on tutorial 7. Well, since no one is here, we'll have to do that differently. And we'll go over tutorial 8. We'll go over the case problem for tutorial 8. I'll give you some tips, and we'll talk about the final project and the homework for the week. So I'm going to try to cover all of tutorial 8 tonight, so we'll see how far we get. Okay? Well, I think we can get pretty far because it's just me. All right. So let's get started. Announcements. So we're going to take 2 weeks for tutorial 8. It'll get us through the Thanksgiving weekend. And then we'll start tutorial 10 in about 2 weeks, so that'll be November 26th. I'll cover some points in tutorial 9, but it isn't a required tutorial, so we will cover that. I'll cover it next week in our session. I'll be in the Tech Center from 5:15 to 7 tomorrow, Thursday, and every Thursday if you need some help or if you need to talk. Okay? And the Tech Center is located above the bookstore on the 2nd floor in the campus center. Okay, tutorial 8 is a very important chapter, and you're going to need this in order to do the final project, which is creating an Excel application. Now, this is not as difficult as the previous chapter, I guarantee it. There's one complex formula, but I think you'll get it. The case problem is fairly straightforward, just a matter of you've got to pay attention to what they are asking. So the main purpose of this chapter, or this tutorial, is to create an application. And one of the ways that you go about creating an application is using defined names. So what are defined names and why do we use them? Well, most Excel formulas aren't easy to understand. I mean, you don't really know what the content of the cells are. So, for example, we take the formula A1 plus A2 times B1. Do we really know what that is about? No. But if I made a reference to A1, such as product cost, and I made a reference to A2 as shipping costs, and then I'm going to multiply that by the market percentage, then I'll know what that really means. And then we see that the formula's purpose is to calculate the retail cost of a product. So this is what we mean by defined names. We get into the cell and we define the name of that cell. Okay? So that is what a defined name is. And let's see. Let's continue. So yeah, and the chapter goes into pasting a list of defined names as documentation, using the defined names and formulas, and adding defined names to existing formulas. So here's a hint. The name manager box is key to editing values of references if the defined name doesn't show up. Okay, so I'll go into that a little bit. And also for the tutorial, as you're going through, be careful that you don't include the C3 to C12 cells, because if you do, it won't work. So I'm going to go over a couple of things in this session 8.1 or section 8.1. So we're going to share Excel right now, and click OK. And let's go find our Excel. And click on share. So right now, even though you're not here, I assume you can see this. And so this is the document called theater, and this is the one that you're going to be working with. So, so what do we mean by defined names? Well, the Excel, okay, so remember the reason we're using defined names is so that we can reference the content of the cell a little bit easier, that the cell's content makes more sense to us than just a cell reference. So this starts with a couple of things, and one of the things that they start with is working down. So if you go down to B24, now be careful here because these cells here are in the B range. There's really nothing to add in the C range. So I'll show you what we're going to do, and I want you to be careful of that. So if you click on cell B24, if you look into the name box, right on the formula bar here, you notice it references B24, and B24 just is the number 10, right? But if I click in here in the name box and I type in something that makes it more meaningful, like handling costs, and hit enter, now when I reference B24, it's going to show that it means handling costs. Same thing with B25, where we're going to just call it parking fee. All right. Again, we're doing this because we want to have something meaningful when we reference these cells, right? Okay. Now, we have to kind of be a little careful when we do the next part of this, all right? So we can actually do a full range too. We can actually do this whole thing here of A16 to C21, and we can reference this whole range, and we can give it a name, and we can call it ticket prices. Okay, so if I select this range, it'll come up as ticket prices, as you can see here. And let's see, we can do the same thing for F25 through J25, and we can call that range there transfer area. Okay, and hit enter and so forth. So that is that part there. Now here is where we are going to, let's see, do they have you do, yeah. So there's a couple things that you can do. If you click down in any name box here, you can see that if I click, just put the drop down there, if I go to parking fee, notice that parking fee becomes the active cell. So they want you to see that. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now this is the part where I want you guys to be careful of. And that is, we're gonna select something, and we're going to reference those from the selections. So we're going to create names from a selection dialog box here. Now, I want you to see what this will look like, but I want you also to be careful. So here's where they're going to say select range from A3 to B12. Now watch what happens if I do this incorrectly. If I do it incorrectly, do not go over here, because now you're selecting here A3 to C12. What you want is just A3 to B12, so it looks like that, all right? And we're going to go to our Formulas tab. And by the way, this is a very interesting tab. We were introduced to it, I believe, in Tutorial 3, but they go focus a little bit more because here's where you can find all of the function library stuff in here. Anyway, so we're going to go over here, and in our Define Names group, we're going to click on Create from Selection. Now, we don't need our names, our values are from the left column here. So we don't have anything in the top row, so all we want to do is click left column and click OK. All right. If we look at that, we can go now to the Name Manager. And the Name Manager is going to store all of our defined names. And it's going to show you what it refers to and so forth. We can go in and we can change the names also. Okay, so we just made a reference to all these, which was pretty simple instead of having to do it individually. Okay, as long as you had something over here to reference it to. So as you can see, the address is actually referring, it's right here, and it's referring to B5 now. So I can go back and I can change some things. So I can, if I click on number of parking decals, I can go and edit that and give it a new name, and call it whatever we want to call it. So I could just call it decals and select OK. Notice that it becomes that new name. And then you can go back and you can click on these and delete whatever ones you want. So and we can close that. If we go to the documentation part of the book, let me just show you what would happen if you had tried to do this, if this doesn't work for you in this Define Names. If I had selected A3 and to B12, but I accidentally incorporated that, I want to show you what it'll look like. So it'll say here, and we'll say yes, and we're going to redo these. Okay. Now, if we go to the Name Manager, however, these are not correct because they're actually referencing a range, and this range will not have anything. So, for example, let me show you what I mean by this. So if I click on here, excuse me, where I'm thinking this is a range, I have to actually do this. So watch what happens if I do this. Equals ticket, and this will bring up ticket quantity, right? Times 5. See, we're getting a reference warning. And the reason why we're getting this reference warning is because this is incorporating C, which is blank. Okay? So we have to redo this. So I'm going to redo this correctly. If this happens to you, just redo it. Go back and click Create from Selection. Do that. And replace all the existing ones here. And then okay, then you'll have to go back. Oops, excuse me. I have to go to the Name Manager if you want to change. We don't need to have that now, and we can delete that. So, okay. So that is. So just be careful when you guys do that part there. Okay. If you want to enter a formula, and I showed you a little bit of that. There is a couple of ways you can do this. I just want to show you. So if I wanted to, let me just make that 5. And if I wanted just to make a formula to say equals ticket, and as soon as if I type TIC, as soon as I hit, and it's highlighted, if I hit the tab key, it will put that in my formula, plus donation, because I know that's a name, and there we go. So, whoops, that was supposed to. Hold on, let me read. let me put that in a different cell reference here. Let me just put it over here. So let's go to equals ticket quantity tab plus donation, and voila, we get 55. So anyway, so this is the same as typing in the cell reference there as well. Okay. I'm not going to go through the rest of this because I think it'll be okay. Be careful though of the formula on page 431 because it's an if question, but it's also referencing a VLOOKUP too. Okay, so they want you to say if the location is orchestra, then the true would be going up the one side here, and if it's false, you're going to be doing the balcony. So it's not that complicated, but it is there. Okay. I think that is all there. Let me switch us back now to the whiteboard. So you should see the whiteboard right now. And we're going to go on to the next part, which is session 8.2. Session 8.1 was a big section, and session 8.2 is a little bit easier. In this area, we're going to create validation rules for data entry, and it talks about protecting the contents of worksheets and workbooks, and you're going to add, edit, and delete comments. So these are all part of this session. So trying to think if there's anything else in here. And let's talk about what a validation rule is. A validation rule is meant, think about this as you are setting up an application. So that means that you want people to enter data. And if you want to restrict that data, you set up the validation rules. And the validation rules, just you can limit those to different things. So let's go back to our sharing. And I'm going to stop sharing just to make sure. Let's go to Excel, share that. Okay. So a validation rule would be if I had one for here, and this is called for the ticket quantity. Okay, and I don't want people to enter anything less than 5 or anything more. Or anything less than 1 and anything more than 19. I want whole numbers. So here's what I do. All I have to do is go to Data, the Data tab, and under the Data Tools tab, I'm going to go under what's called the Data Validation part, and I'm going to click on Data Validation. And here is where the first tab you want to click on is Settings. And what we want is we want whole numbers. We don't want any decimals or anything. And we want the data between 1 and 19. Okay? Here's also where we can put a message in to tell people what we want. We can give this data validation rule a title, and we're gonna call it number of tickets, and we're going to say we're going to tell the people to enter, whoever's going to put this in, number, oops, be careful of your spelling, number, because it won't give you a spell checker here, tickets, oh sorry, purchased, all right, and then we're going to click on an error alert. So what we're going to try to tell people, oh, and the settings also, make sure you uncheck the ignore blank because you want them to pay attention to blanks. We don't want any blanks. So we're going to go to the error alert, and instead of stop, now this would stop it from entering anything. So we're just going to give it a warning here. So we'll give it a title, invalid data, number of tickets. Okay, and the error message we're just going to say you have entered a value less than 1 or greater than 19. Check the number you entered. If it is correct, click yes. If unsure, click cancel. All right? So let's see what this is going to look like. Whoops. Okay, so now you see this little message here. It says enter the number of tickets purchased, and if I click 1, it's okay. If I click 20, watch what happens. Now I'm going to get this error message. It says you've entered a value less than this. If this is correct, click yes. So what you're saying, when it gives you a warning, you're saying, is this really what you want? And if you're unsure, then click cancel. Then you can go back and it'll go back to the regular number. All right. You can also do data validation for a series of entries, so you can give it a range. Okay. So I'm going to say for this one's going to be in here. We're gonna have a drop-down box to choose from the series that we want. So we're going to click on here, and we're going to go to data validation, and we're going to go to settings, and instead of a whole number here, we're going to go to a list. And our list is going to be, I'm going to click on the source, and this is our list. We want anything from A through F, right? So that's where we're going to, that's our data. And we want to click on ignore blank, click that off because we want them to pay attention to any blanks. And we want to make sure that this box is checked. It's because we're going to have a drop down. And then you would put your title here, and an input message. So just to save time, I'm just going to say click the arrow and select one of the choices listed. Oops. And you can go back and error message. We're going to have a warning. We're not going to have any error messages. An invalid series has been entered. Click retry. Press the escape key and click the arrow. And click the arrow to the right. Select B, C, D, E, or F. Okay? And what that'll look like is a little bit different when you're doing between two numbers. So here, as soon as you click on that cell, it's going to say click the arrow and select one of the choices listed. Oh, I see I have a spelling mistake. on my data, I can go back and click on that. I see my input message. Fix that, click OK, and now it fixed it automatically. So I can either drop down and pick whatever from here, but if I accidentally put in something like Z, I'm going to get this error message, okay? And actually, for this one, I forgot I am not doing a warning here because I can't really do a warning because I don't want this. I actually want it to stop. I don't want it to continue. So if I put Z and it's an invalid series, is click retry, press escape key, and so forth. So I click retry. Now I hit escape. Whoops. Sorry. And then I can do D or whatever. All right. So that is a series. Next thing the book talks about is protecting a workbook. If you look at any cell, such as this one, and if I right-click on here, and if I just click on Format Cells, there is a tab here called Protection. And notice that all cells are generally defaulted to locked. I can actually change that. If I wanted to protect this whole worksheet, watch what happens. So first of all, I need to go into Review, and if I say Protect Sheet, it will do this. And I can give a password to here, but be very careful. It gets to be a little unruly if you do forget your password. So click OK. And notice that this sheet is locked. So if I try to enter anything right now, I'm going to get a message that says this sheet is protected. Okay. So but I want to enter things here, right? So I want to say 2, and it says you're trying to protect it. So I want to protect the whole sheet, but I want this part to be unlocked. So what I have to do is unprotect the sheet, go back to these cells here, and I want those to not be locked. Click OK. Just to make sure that is, yeah. And now when I protect the sheet, I should still be able to enter data, which I can. Okay? So that is protecting a worksheet. You can also protect a whole workbook, which will protect all the sheets in there. Okay? You can protect one sheet and not the other, and so forth. So anyway, you may get Excel worksheets like that from your company, and you try to make certain changes to a cell and you can't, and that's because they have it protected, and usually they'll have it password protected, so you cannot get that there. You could also insert comments just like you do in Microsoft Word. I could insert comments here, and I could put in anything there again, and that's under oops, I gotta unprotect the sheet first. And if I click on the cell I want the comment to be, and it'll come up with this little it looks like a sticky note, and I'll say enter all data for this order form in cells B3 to B11. Okay? Now watch what happens after I hit, excuse me, don't hit enter, just click anywhere off. There's a little red mark there. If I hover over that, that's there. Okay, so you learned about validating cells, which you'll need for your case problem. You learned about inserting comments, which you'll need, and so forth. Then the last part is working with macros. So let's go back to our let's see. I'm going to go to View, go back to our whiteboard, and we're going to look at macros. So why use macros? How do they help us? Well, if you have tasks that you don't that have a series of steps that you don't want to keep repeating all the time, you would use a macro, okay? And the great thing about macros is that for any repetitive tasks, you can make a little macro and a macro button, and instead of having to redo those tasks every time, you click on the button and it will do it, such as printing a chart or printing a worksheet or printing a certain cells and so forth. Okay. Macros use what's called the Visual Basic Editor, and so they use these are what are called subroutines, and these subroutines are what's keeping track of the steps that you're doing in the macro. You can go back and if you know a little bit of Visual Basic or just certain places of where to edit it, you can do that. Okay. The danger about macros, and that's why Excel gives you some warnings, is that they have been traditionally a place where people have written viruses, and that is why you usually get a warning in a workbook if it has macros in it. All right. So just a few hints when using macros: you should rehearse it. You should rehearse the macro, and if you make any mistakes or it's not working, just delete it and re-record it. And little mistakes can be fixed in what's called the VB editor. Okay. So let's go look at what a macro looks like. So I'm going to switch us back, and I'm going to stop sharing, start sharing. Let's go to Excel, go to our theater worksheet, and so forth. All right. So let me reduce that. And if I wanted to, I probably should go over some of the settings that they have here. So let me go to one setting, and most of the time you will have this defaulted. So let's go to the Backstage view, click on the File tab, all right? And we're going to go let's go to Options, and let's go to the Trust Center. And let's go to Trust Center Settings. Under the Trust Center Settings, there's different things you have here, and one of the ones is Macro Settings. One of the ones that you recommend is this one called Disable All Macros with Notification. So this allows you to proceed with this. One that you don't want is this one, probably Enable All Macros. So that means that anytime you open up the file, it'll automatically run the macros. With this setting, you are giving it a little bit more, you're enabling it a little bit more, but only with your authorization. And this setting will never play any macros, so you won't be able to run them at all. Okay? So you just want to leave it at this second setting here. All right? And let's see. One of the things, if you don't have it already, probably should make sure that it is in your developer tab. So that's one of the things you need to make sure. So this is your developer tab here, and this is going to contain almost everything you need to have for macros. If you don't have that, you just go to File, and you're going to go again back to the Options tab, and you're going to go click on the Customize ribbon button here, okay? And on the right, you're going to have the different tabs. And one of the tabs that if it's not checked, you want to check the Developer tab there, okay? And then you click OK, and then that should show up there, okay? So make sure that that is, because by default it will not show up. Let's talk about recording a macro. When you first again, we said if you wanted to rehearse it, in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to record a macro that's going to print this box here. Now, we didn't fill this up yet, but this will. Oh, excuse me, 1 second. No, not at my door. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's just say this is a macro that we want. We want to print a PDF of this area here. Now, I didn't go through all of this, but here you would have data. In fact, let me show you what that kind of looks like here. So this is after you put in the formulas and put in the data. This is what this will look like when you get through here. Okay, so the macro that we have is a macro button. What it's going to do, it's going to do a print area of this and then make it into a PDF. So if you watch this, if I click on Create PDF, what it did was it put a header here called Customer Invoice. It also centered it, and it also formatted it as a PDF. So how did we get there? Well, let's look at that. Okay, so I'm going to close that. Actually, you may not have been able to see that. I apologize. But basically, this did create a PDF, and then I'll have to share that PDF with you. Okay, so I'll go back there and share it. So how do we go there? Well, we first have to go to the developer, and this will then, we want to click on Record Macro. Record Macro, okay? We're going to give it a name. We'll call it PDF2. And we'll give it a shortcut. And I'm going to do something a little different. So I'm going to say B, because I did this already. I want to make sure this is stored in the workbook, this macro, okay? Whoops, that's right. Okay. Well, let's call it PDF invoice. Yeah, that should. Oh, okay. No, we don't want to do that. Call it invoice 2. Click OK. And then right now you can see that we are in recording mode. So any keyboard stroke, any mouse stroke, it is going to do that right now. So right now I want to go to page layout, and I want to highlight this because this is, this area here. I'm going to go to print area, and I'm going to say set the print area. I'm going to go to my dialog box, and I want that to be horizontally centered, and I want the customer invoice to be there. If I didn't, I would change that here, and I would take the name of, I would type in customer invoice. If I wanted a footer, I could put a footer here, and that would be the date, okay? And let's see, and then I click, I want this to be a PDF, so otherwise if I wanted just to print, I would click print here, okay? But I really want this, I could set where my printer is, or I could set it in Adobe PDF. And there's two ways you can do that. You can click on the printer and then click on Adobe PDF, or you can click on Save and Send if you don't have Adobe, and then click on Create PDF Document, and then it's going to ask you what it's going to be called, and you're going to say whatever you want to call it, and you're going to publish that. And now I need to share what that looks like. So, all right, so let me go back here to sharing. And this is the problem with sharing sometimes, is that I can't do it more than, but I want you to see that once I click on that button, this is what comes up. Cancel, excuse me. This is our part here. Okay, well, that's actually the older one, but this is what it looks like. All right, and so there's more stuff about PDFs here, and they have you do some editing in the VB editor. I'm not going to go through that right now because there's a few other things I need to cover. So, okay, so let me go back to sharing. And oops. And let's start sharing. Go back to Excel. I wish they would let you toggle, but I haven't seen a way of doing that. Okay, so we're back to Excel. Again, this is our button. If we want to make a button, let's click on Developer, and let's click on the controls, and we can make, there's different things you can do here. But in this case, we're going to just click on a button. We can put it anywhere, and then we associate that button with the macro. So in this case, we're going to call it PDF Invoice 2. Click OK, and I can call it whatever. 2, whatever you want to call it. All right, and then now this button is associated with that PDF. All right. Okay, and I'm sure you would have questions at this point, so I'm not going to go there quite yet, but I want to show you a couple things when you do the case problem. So let's go back, and let me go to the whiteboard, and in the case problem, there's a few things. Step 3, the unit sold just needs to be the cell reference G3. You don't need to define, you don't need to do a defined name for that one. Okay. So in your formula, you do need to use the defined name price per unit, and that is what you did in step. We did that in step 2. Okay. All right. So step 2 has you do these defined names. In step 4, in your formula, you do need to use the defined names, cost per unit, and monthly expenses. Now, step 5, this is very, 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 very critical. Okay, very critical. You have to make sure that you have the correct formula, because if, depending on which book version you have, this should say this. If you don't have the correct one, change it right now. So it should be fixed monthly expense divided. Okay, so what they're talking about is the break-even point. So the break-even point should be the fixed monthly expense divided by the difference between the price per unit and the cost per unit. And if yours says number of units instead of cost per units, that is wrong. All right? So then you're going to add the if-error function after you create the formula. Got that? Just want to make sure you guys see that. So again, step 5, you want to make sure that in this formula, it's trying to figure out the break-even point. So it's the fixed monthly expense divided by the difference between the price per unit and the cost per unit. After you get that, then you add your if-error. Okay? Step 6, it's going to ask you to represent an if-error function if there's a blank cell. Remember, it's just quote, quote, double quote, double quote. Okay? Step 7, for the input messages and error alerts. This is in previous assignments when I've done this. If you look at the table, figure 838, it says input message, message, enter an appropriate message. Well, you're not going to write enter an appropriate message. You need to enter in a message, a real message. So I will deduct points if you just keep that. So please look at pages 439 to 441 for examples of what types of messages you want. Okay. If in steps 12 to 13, when you make your macro, if you can't use Control A, you can do something like Control Shift A or control another letter, whatever you want. Oh, there's one other thing. Step 8. Step 8 is going to say protect the worksheet. Don't do that. You can protect the worksheet afterwards, but not until everything is done. If you don't even want to protect the worksheet, that's fine because it may not run correctly. So let's go back. Let's see. Step 14, make sure that the print chart macro runs first before editing the VB code. Okay? You will not see the line here if you don't run the print chart macro first. Okay, that'll make sense when you do it. If it's not working by printing, okay, or doing print preview, what you can do is do like the book has and do it as a PDF. If you do it as a PDF, I will accept that. Okay? All right, so your final workbook will be called SP or Seattle Popcorn with macros, and that will make it a macro-enabled book. All right? So that is the case problem. This week's assignments are for you to do start working on tutorial 8, and I would recommend going through that and then do the discussion forum that just gives you some extra macro practice. Quiz 4 is, Quiz 4 is not due till November 26th, and I think it's ready. Yeah, it should be ready. Oh no, wait. No, it's not ready yet, so gotta do that. Case problem 2 for tutorial 8, you have 2 weeks to work on it, well, about another week and a half, as it's not due until November 25th. And if you follow the tutorial, you'll be able to do it. Remember, it's displaying a blank cell and formula, double quotes. Okay? All right, remember the final project is still upon us. Now that you're working on tutorial 8, you can start doing that and make sure you find the final project information. It's worth 120 points. It's due December 15th. And you can do an alternate project, like something related to work, but it has to have elements from tutorial 7, such as nested ifs, VLOOKUP, if-error. Has to have elements from tutorial 8, such as Excel application with defined names, validation roles, and a macro. So let me know if you would like to do that, okay? So if you should know you have to get through tutorial 7 and 8 to do it. And so if you want to get started, I'm going to give you guys a kind of a quick hint. So, oops, how did I get that in there? Okay. All right, I guess I got it twice. I'm going to go to sharing, and I want you to see something. In your final project, you are creating this form, right? And it's this Island Dream Shop thing. And an easy way to get started with this and then make adjustments is to do this. And this is not cheating, so I'm going to give this to you. Okay? If you want to, hold on, I gotta go back to it. Oops, sorry. I have to stop it first. This is what drives me crazy. Hold on a moment. And whiteboard. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, start sharing. So, if you want it to look like that, download that file. Let's go to, okay. You can do something kind of nifty, and that is you can take what you did in tutorial 8 and just copy it. Just copy this whole thing, and just do a copy, and then put it into a new spreadsheet. I mean, a new workbook. Yeah. It is not giving me that opportunity. I hope it's not. Whoops. Oh, is that one protected? Yeah. Okay, that was why the workbook was protected. So let me go here, and if I click in and let me click in whoops. Oh, sorry. I just realized something. I did. Okay, hold on. Let's go back here. Let's just copy this. And we're going to copy. And we're going to go to sheet 1. And we're going to go to paste. And you can actually get started with it doing this. Okay? As you see, you have your format. You can make it, starting here, if that helps you. If not, then recreate it. So, not sure if that is helpful. All right? So, let's go back to our whiteboard. And I think that's all we have for tonight. So, good luck. And I'll be in the Tech Center tomorrow from 5:15 to 7. And have a good evening. Bye-bye.